Hi, my name is Sage Skaggs, and today I will be telling you about the change of cooking in Japan, Germany, and American cuisine during World War II, as well as telling you about my cookbook project. Before I could begin my research, I of course had to formulate a thesis that would directly correlate to the research I intended to do throughout my senior year. I came up with many ideas, but I finally narrowed it down to my final thesis, and that is, although the cuisine in Japan, Germany, and the United States of America are very different, all three changed in the same way during war, lack of money, as well as in time of prospering. You might be thinking that this is a very random topic to come up with, but the reason behind me choosing this topic is my grandmother. Not that she chose the topic and I decided to go with it, but when my grandmother was growing up, her and her family moved to different countries a lot. Two of the countries that have really inspired the cuisine within my family were Japan and Germany. Many of you may be thinking now, what does she mean when she keeps saying cuisine? Does she mean cooking? Before I go any further, I would like to address the definition of cuisine. Cuisine is a major part of history. Not only is cuisine a cultural approach to a country, it is also the backbone of a country. All countries and regions have different cuisine backgrounds and styles. Even though each country's cuisine background and styles varies from each other, they all share a lot in common. For example, the staples of the cuisine in the United States are wheat and corn. The fundamentals of Japanese cuisine are rice and miso. The primary ingredients of German cuisine are potatoes and meat. Many people may be wondering, still, she hasn't defined cuisine. What is cuisine? Well, the dictionary definition of cuisine is a style or method of cooking as a characteristic of a particular country, region, or establishment. The word cuisine comes from 18th century France, and it means kitchen. Although, besides the dictionary definition, cuisine can mean different things to different people. Cuisine could be your mama's home cooking just as much as it could be an entire country's cuisine. Well, kind of. When people think about the time they spend in their kitchen, they usually think about their families and traditions that one's family might have around their cuisine. They might think about holidays and how their whole family likes to get together and cook big feasts. They might think about their grandmother's cooking and how it's comfort food, and you can't wait to get home to have your grandmother's signature dish. Cuisine can be defined in many ways, and there are many different stories behind why certain people might define cuisine differently than another person. Just as much as many cultures might define their traditions and meaning of cuisine differently. No matter how different cultures are, they all spend a decent amount of time in their kitchen cooking. The difference about how they spend their time in their kitchen is their cuisine. A culture's cuisine can be shaped in many ways, for example, in times of war, in excess of money, and in lack of money. Three very different cultures like Japan, Germany, and the United States may have very different cultural values and very different cuisines. Now that we got that cleared up, let me tell you where I started my research. To start, I first picked Japan. Now think of Japanese cuisine in your head. Most of what you're thinking is wrong. Most people, when they think of Japanese cuisine, they think of sushi and teriyaki. They think of the Americanized way of cooking Japanese food. Because of the Americanized way we think of Japanese food has a stigma in America for being a much more healthier cuisine than the United States. Although sushi is, of course, a Japanese dish, the way we eat it in America is not the way it originated in Japan. Sushi that is traditional from Japan is mostly raw fish and cucumbers. The United States Americanized it by adding things such as cream cheese, avocados, and popular meats in the United States, such as beef and chicken. Sushi is not the only Japanese dish that has been Americanized. Teriyaki has the same story as sushi, although it is a Japanese dish. The way we eat it in America is not how it originated in Japan. And thinking about teriyaki, a lot of people think that teriyaki is the name of a food. But in fact, that is not true. Teriyaki is a cooking style in which foods are grilled or broiled and glazed with a sauce that consists of sugar, soy sauce, and sake. When most people think of German cuisine, they think about Lager and Wiener Schnitzel. But German cuisine has a bigger influence on American cuisine than a lot of people realize. Even hamburgers and French fries, the most American dish, was influenced by German cuisine. Germans tend to eat heavy, hearty meals that include ample portions of meat and bread. Potatoes are the staple food in Germany, which explains where French fries came from. Well, sort of. During World War II, many of the staple foods in Germany became unavailable. The Allies tried to bomb the farms in Germany. Of course, it was hard to bomb specific farms, so they took out the transportation services, making it nearly impossible for the Germans to get the food supply from the farms into the cities. The year World War II began was the year that the United States of America came out of the Great Depression. There was a lack of food in America for many reasons. The majority of canned and processed foods were being sent overseas to our troops and allies. Since there was rationing on gasoline, transporting war supplies and soldiers was prioritized over transporting and importing foods like coffee and sugar. Although these are just a few ways that Japan, Germany, and the United States of America changed, there are many reasons that I found why these countries changed like they did during World War II. For my interview, I contacted Bill Tyne. Tyne is the owner of a very well-known restaurant named Matsuri that is located in Baltimore, Maryland. Matsuri has been voted Best Japanese Restaurant by Baltimore Magazine and the Baltimore City paper year after year, and has been the recipient of highest rankings from the Baltimore Sun and Zagat. Tyne opened Matsuri in 1996 in Federal Hill. Matsuri was the culmination of Bill Tyne's vision for Japanese cuisine in Baltimore. Prior to opening Matsuri, Tyne had been involved as an owner or chef in multicultural restaurants for more than 35 years. Preferring to specialize in Japanese cuisine, Tyne was very nice as we spoke both through email and over the phone. My family likes to get together on holidays, and sometimes just for no reason at all, and cook big feasts. Ever since I can remember, every holiday, everyone has been in the kitchen cooking and fighting over the ovens and mixers. But at the end of the day, me and all my cousins would come inside from playing and enjoy a huge feast with the rest of my family. Cooking is a big part of my family. My family has hundreds of old handwritten recipes that have been shoved in binders and on shelves and are just in a total disarray. While I was thinking what I could do for my project, I decided to take all of those recipes that have temporary homes in binders or shoved on bookshelves and make them into cookbooks. To begin the process, I first searched many different websites to see which one would help me make a cookbook. Finding none at first, I thought I had really got myself into a tizzy. Miss Ferris kindly recommended that I make a Walgreens account and see if that would work. It did. I finally found where I was going to build my cookbook. Phew. After finding that Walgreens would work, I made an account and figured out how the site would work. I made a schedule of when to work on my project. This schedule consisted of going home after school and looking at the recipes, taking pictures of the recipes, and deciding which recipes needed to be rewritten because they were too old or damaged to be read. After each week of taking pictures of the recipes, I would upload a week's worth of recipes in my Tuesday focus study, as to slow down the school's Wi-Fi and not my own. After I had uploaded 150 plus recipes that I found from my great-grandparents' collection as well as my grandmother's collection, I picked a template on the Walgreens website. I decided to go with the 8x8 book as to not be too small and not to be too big. I began to arrange my pictures onto the book. This was the hardest part, deciding which way I wanted to organize the cookbook. Did I want to go by region? Did I want to go by food type? Or did I want to go by oldest to newest or vice versa? After I decided that I wanted to organize my recipes by food type, I categorized them and continued to size them. As well as creating a cookbook, I also decided to make food out of the cookbook. I made 5 recipes from each country and took pictures of the final project to go into my cookbook. The idea behind deciding to do a cookbook was so that my whole family could have copies of the recipes of the famous dishes that we all die to go to my great-grandparents' house to eat what my great-grandpa has cooked. Now that we're nearing the end, you all may be wondering, now what is this food she has on the table here? Well, I made 3 recipes for you all to try today. I made yakitori as the Japanese dish, pulled pork for the American dish, and spätzle for the German dish. The yakitori is made with chicken and a sauce that has soy sauce, brown sugar, water, sake, and mirin. The pulled pork is made with, of course, pork and glazed with brown sugar and other spices. The spätzle is made with flour, eggs, milk, salt, pepper, and nutmeg. You guys may be wondering now, what is spätzle? The others seem very self-explanatory. Spätzle was a cheap alternative for noodles during World War II. It has been very exciting researching my topic, as well as looking at old recipes that have come down my family line. There are some recipes that are at least 100 years old. I found a lot of interesting things about Japan, Germany, and the United States, as well as I have also found out many things about my family. Thank you. And you guys can feel free to come up and sample the food after the questioning. Anybody have any questions? Matthias?
How long did you cook that pulled pork for?
All night. Sarah?
What was your favorite recipe that you found?
I don't know. There were a lot of really old ones that were interesting, and it was interesting looking through those and seeing how much my grandma makes them, and that I just didn't realize that they were out of that cookbook. So, Doc Roland?
Do you have to translate from old measuring amounts, like, I don't know, pinch of this, or were they really precise?
Some of them were kind of like, you put some of this in, you pinch this, and so, but a lot of them were exact measurements, like tablespoons and teaspoons, so that was helpful. It was just hard to read a lot of them because they had been water damaged, or the paper was just so old and so, yeah. Paul?
You mentioned that the German dish was sort of like a substitute thing. Are the other dishes kind of like that too?
The other dishes are more traditional and just more of a traditional type of American and Japanese cooking. The spätzle I just thought was really interesting because it was kind of like an alternative to noodles, even though it kind of looks like fried eggs, but it's made up of mostly eggs. So. Rosalie. It's hot of me.
What did you do with the old paper recipes? Did you actually put them in the book or just pictures?
No, I just pictured them. I took pictures of them and put them in there as opposed to putting the actual recipes in there, because since I was going to make copies of them, it was easier to do it that way and order it online, and then I'd have more copies of it instead of just having the original recipes in there. Is that all? Oh, Mr. Taylor? Doc Roland?
Are younger Germans eating other things now in German restaurants? What's happening to old traditional style German restaurants in Germany itself?
It's the more traditional food that was made in Germany mostly comes around now around festivals and stuff like that. It's not really incorporated in restaurants as much as it is. I was reading this article and the guy said that he hadn't, it was like this potato dish and he hadn't tried it since a really long time, but his town sometimes incorporates it into their festivals that they have in their town, so it's worth that. Senior Arlen?
Do you find that all these cultures also had to deal with fermenting foods as a way of trying to preserve them at times when there was little electricity?
A lot of them canned them and like salted their meats and stuff like that. So I'm sure there was fermenting of like that too. Okay, that's all I have time for. Thank you.